trust me, the one we're digging into today, it's a treasure trove. It's called A New Life Planned in Cyprus by Rob and Mandy.
Catchy title.
Right. And you know me, I love a good backstory. So these two, Rob and Mandy, they're actually expats who've been living in Cyprus.
Oh, wow. So they're living the dream, trading in the daily grind for island life.
Exactly. And they've been documenting their travels on this blog for years. Years.
Okay, so we're talking serious travel pros here, not just your average weekend getaway bloggers.
Absolutely. I mean, their blog is massive. Tons of trips, amazing photos, detailed stories, and after this, like 10-hour flight from Doha.
Brutal. I'd be ready to collapse.
Right. But not Rob and Mandy. They are off that plane and raring to go. Straight into a car, no time wasted, and then bam, they're strolling along the waterfront.
Wow, that's dedication. Most people would be searching for the nearest coffee shop after a flight like that.
Oh, I know. It's like they run on sunshine and adventure. And the way they describe it, the blue skies, the warm weather, the smell of the ocean, you can practically feel the energy.
Plus, they wasted no time hitting up a Cape Town classic fish and chips by the lighthouse. Did they mention which lighthouse?
They didn't, but I'm picturing it now. The sun setting, the waves crashing.
Perfect Instagram moment. But it sounds like they're all about soaking in the atmosphere, not just snapping photos.
Right, and that's what I love. They're present, experiencing it all firsthand, but they also, love those classic tourist spots. They're off to Table Mountain.
Classic for a reason. Those views are incredible. Did they take the cable car up?
You know they did. And get this. They had breakfast up there. Can you imagine starting your day with that panorama?
Talk about a breakfast with a view. Okay, I'm officially adding that to my bucket list.
Right. And then, after conquering Table Mountain, they head to, get this, Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden.
Whoa, 2 nature stops in one day. They're on a roll.
I know. I mean, it might seem like a lot, but it makes sense when you think about it. Remember, they chose to build a life in Cyprus.
Oh, yeah, surrounded by nature. So it's like they have this deep appreciation for it.
Exactly. And it shows you how even something like choosing a botanical garden over, say, a museum can tell you a lot about someone.
It's those little details that paint a picture. Okay, I'm invested now. What else do they get up to?
Well, we can't forget about Rob's landmark birthday. Apparently, Mandy surprised him with, well, let's just say things got lively.
A landmark birthday, huh? Let me guess, he's not a fan of big celebrations.
You know it. But Mandy managed to drag him onto the dance floor. They were at this place with a live band, drums, the whole shebang.
Okay, so we've got nature lovers, live music enthusiasts. These guys know how to have a good time. They woke up ready for more adventure, but maybe not thinking things through.
You're talking about the whole walking to the V&A waterfront and the heat thing.
Yeah, it was like 30 degrees Celsius.
Oof, yeah. I can feel that. Even a short walk in that heat can really wipe you out. I've been there.
Totally. But gotta give them credit, they rallied.
They did. Found their way to some air conditioning, which, let's be real, sometimes that's the best part of a vacation.
No judgment here.
Yeah.
Air conditioning and a cold drink. Yes, please.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of cold drinks, this is where things take an interesting turn. Remember how we were speculating about their music taste?
Yeah, world music, upbeat vibes. What'd they find? Some hidden jazz club.
Not quite. Get this, they end up in a German beer hall?
Wait, a German beer hall in Cape Town? I mean, it's not exactly the most obvious choice.
Right. It kind of comes out of nowhere. But hey, they mentioned live music, so.
There's that pattern again. These two are like magnets for live music. What were the chances?
Totally. It's like they're saying, show us what you got, Cape Town, and Cape Town definitely delivered.
It did,
Oh.
and it makes me wonder, for our listeners, what are those things, those sensory experiences that truly make a trip memorable? Such a good question. Is it the music, the food, the smells? For Rob and Mandy, it's clearly that mix of live music, good food, and those genuine local experiences. And it's not just the music, right? It's that whole vibe. Like, they're not afraid to just wander and see where the day takes them.
Totally. It's that sense of adventure,
Yeah.
that openness to the unexpected. That's what makes their blog so engaging. It's like, yeah, you've got your itinerary, but sometimes the best moments are the ones you don't plan for.
Seriously, this blog is like a rabbit hole of travel inspiration. You start with one story, and then you're clicking on another and another.
It's addicting. And it reminds you that there's a whole world out there waiting to be explored. And that's what Rob and Mandy do so well. They capture those little details, those moments that make you want to experience it for yourself.
Absolutely. It's not just about the destination, it's about the journey and the people you meet and the stories you collect along the way. They go from like sipping wine in Stellenbosch's famed winelands straight to spending the day in Kayamandi Township.
Wow, yeah, talk about a jarring juxtaposition.
Yay.
That really highlights the, I'd say, complexities of South Africa. It's a
Mm.
country where you often find those stark contrasts,
Mm.
really deeply intertwined. And Stellenbosch, especially with its history, shaped by colonialism and apartheid,
Hmm.
it really embodies that tension.
Yeah, it's definitely a side of Stellenbosch that I guess a lot of tourists maybe don't see or even think about while they're off doing those wine tours and such.
Exactly. And while those tours, they do offer a glimpse into the region's beauty, of course, and that amazing legacy of winemaking tradition. But townships like Kayamandi, they reveal a different kind of legacy, one that's, well, rooted in those systemic inequalities.
Heavy stuff. And it's clear this visit to Kayamandi, it really stuck with them, Rob and Mandy. I mean, they even mentioned like discussing it all day long afterward. What stood out to you about their reflections on that experience?
It's interesting, what struck me was how they're grappling with that visible poverty. They describe the tin shacks, the cramped conditions. They even say it's quite astonishing in these modern days, which I thought was an interesting choice of words.
It's almost like they couldn't believe it.
Yeah, there's this real sense that they're struggling to kind of reconcile that reality with the warmth and hospitality they clearly encountered based on what they wrote.
You're right. There's this definite tension there. On one hand, they're clearly taken aback by the living conditions, but then they go on and on about how friendly everyone was, especially the beautiful smiles of the kids they met.
Yeah. And speaking of shaping experiences, there's another aspect of Stellenbosch they encountered that I found interesting, those dramatic temperature swings.
Oh, right. They mentioned waking up to mist and way cooler temperatures out in wine country. A far cry from, like, the 40-degree weather they had in town just the day before.
Yeah, that's the Western Cape for you.
So it's like normal.
Oh, yeah, totally normal. The Western Cape's known for these microclimates, and Stellenbosch, it's no exception. You can go from basking in sunshine to digging out a sweater in a matter of hours. All thanks to this crazy interplay of, like, ocean currents, mountain ranges, you name it.
So it's not just history that adds layers to Stellenbosch. It's like the very air you breathe.
Remember how they were just as captivated by this random pub that reminded them of a traditional British pub as they were by, those wine farms and historic architecture we were talking about?
That's true. It's like they're drawn to the familiar, even when they're going somewhere totally new and unknown. What do you make of that? It's like they're trying to find those little threads, those echoes of home, even in a place as different as South Africa is from Cyprus.
Yeah, maybe it's their way of making sense of it all, of kind of grounding themselves in the familiar.
Okay, so get this. Picture yourself in Durban, South Africa.
I love Durban.
With Rob and Mandy, the
Yeah.
couple who moved to Cyprus.
Right.
We're diving into their blog from their big South Africa trip back in 2019.
Fun.
And we're joining them for 3 days in Durban. It's going to be action-packed, beaches, stadiums, even a hospital visit. So buckle up.
Wow, they pack a lot in. I love how Rob and Mandy really capture the essence of a place, and Durban is more than just a beach city. It's like a real mix of cultures and history.
Totally. And speaking of packing a lot in, day one starts with a bang. Literally, they wake up to get this massive electrical storm.
Oh, no.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah.
But ever the adventurers, they don't let a little no power stop them.
Right, of course not.
Next thing you know, they're off on segways.
Wait, really? Segways?
First time for both of them.
No way.
They talk about dodging sand sculptures on the promenade, and then they even ride out on a pier for this amazing view of the Indian Ocean.
I can just imagine. That sounds incredible. And it really shows how they are always up for anything.
Oh, and they tell this hilarious story about almost wiping out because of a sudden gust of wind. You can totally picture it, right?
Totally. Okay, so storm, segways, what's next?
Oh, it doesn't stop there. I had to wait for it. Moses Madida Stadium.
Wow. I've heard of that. Isn't it that iconic stadium?
That's the one. They even got to step onto the pitch, which is pretty cool.
To stand where, soccer legends have played.
Right. You'd think that would be enough for one day, but no, they're not done.
No way. They're just getting started.
They finish the day at the Ushaka Marine World Aquarium. Sharks, dolphins, you name it, they saw it.
Oh, wow. From the city to the ocean, all in one day. Classic Rob and Mandy.
So day 2 starts off
Yeah.
a little differently. Remember how I mentioned a hospital visit?
Oh, yeah. What happened there?
Yeah, so it turns out even the most experienced travelers, right,
Mm-hmm.
can't predict everything.
True.
And Rob and Mandy,
Right.
they're not afraid to keep it real.
Right.
They mentioned Rub had some pretty bad back spasms.
Oh, no.
And they ended up,
In a hospital?
in a local hospital. Yeah.
Wow. Navigating a
I know, right?
foreign hospital, that's
It's
a whole other thing.
a whole other adventure. So, day 3.
Okay, what's on the agenda?
They slow things down a bit.
Oh, nice.
They head to
Where'd they go?
the races.
No way.
Grayville Racecourse.
Wow, I love that they
I know, right?
got to experience that
Total change of pace
Mhm.
from the city and hospitals. Now they're like
out in the
the sunshine.
the open. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great.
And of course, they stumble upon
What is it this time?
another great story.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Yeah. So they get this
Yeah.
sneak into the Gold Lounge.
What? How'd they manage that?
I know, right?
Weren't exactly dressed for it, I bet.
They were wearing shorts.
Oh, no, that's hilarious.
But somehow they charmed their way in.
Rob and Mandy, they always find a way.
Days 12, 13, and 14 to be precise.
So a mini-series, kind of, within their larger adventure. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, exactly. And they really pack a lot into those 3 days. Just to set the scene, they're in Hulua Imfolozi Park.
Wait, say that again?
Hulua Imfolozi.
Hulu and Folosi. Got it.
It's one of the oldest game reserves in Africa, known for its incredible biodiversity.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing no safari is complete without a guide, right?
You know it. Enter Sibo, their guide. And let me tell you, he quickly becomes a star player in their adventure.
That's great. It's amazing how a good guide can really make or break those experiences. What makes Sibo so special?
So, reading their descriptions of him, you instantly get a sense that he's incredibly knowledgeable and truly passionate about wildlife. Like, just a genuinely cool dude to be around. They even mentioned that he just seemed to know exactly where to find all the best animal sightings.
I love that. There's nothing better than a guide who's really in tune with the environment.
Right. But before they even get to the good stuff, meaning those epic safari drives, they make a pit stop at a wildcat sanctuary.
Okay, now wildcats. You've got my attention. What kind of wildcats are we talking about here?
Oh, just your casual servals, caracals, African wildcats. You know, the
Of
usual
course,
part
just the
there.
usual suspect.
But if you know me, you know I'd beeline straight for the cheetahs.
Who can resist those incredible creatures?
Right, no, right? Amazing animals. Sadly, they are endangered.
Right, which is why these sanctuaries are so crucial for their conservation.
Absolutely. But here's where I did a double take reading their blog post. They actually walk into the cheetah enclosure.
Wait, what? Into the enclosure?
Yeah, into the cheetah enclosure.
Wow. That's pretty up close and personal, even in a sanctuary setting.
It wasn't a free-for-all, obviously. It seemed controlled and everything. But still, I was reading it and I was a bit nervous for them.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, it really makes
Yeah.
you wonder about the protocols they have in place and that balance between human interaction and, the well-being of the animals.
Right. Like, how much is too much? But anyway, cheetah encounter behind them. They finally set off into the park for their first official game drive. And of course, almost immediately, they're greeted by a sight that could only happen on safari.
Oh. Let me guess, a pride of lions lounging in the shade.
Even better! Picture this. A massive bull elephant just casually blocking the road.
Laughs, of course. Talk about an obstacle. You're definitely not in Kansas anymore. Did they say how Sibo handled that?
They said he was completely unfazed. Apparently, they just sat there patiently, waiting for this magnificent creature to move on. They even got some amazing photos, I bet.
I bet they did. There's nothing quite like seeing those animals in their natural habitat. It's an incredible privilege.
Totally. And that wasn't even the only incredible sighting they had that day. They saw rhinos, like up close and personal.
No way.
Yeah. I'm talking a few feet away.
Wow.
Rob was describing it like this wave of awe just washed over him, realizing the size and the power of these creatures that have, roamed the earth for centuries.
It's that feeling, right? Like
Yeah.
connecting with something ancient and primal. It really puts things in perspective.
Totally. And of course, Sibo, being the awesome guide that he is, shared a ton of fascinating facts about rhinos.
Like what?
Well, did you know that even though they have that tough exterior, rhinos are actually super vulnerable?
Really? To what?
Things like habitat loss
Hmm?
and poaching, sadly. Sibo even pointed out some telltale signs of past poaching attempts on some of the rhinos they encountered, which is just, heartbreaking.
It's a reminder of the very real threats these animals face every single day, even with all the conservation efforts.
Yeah, for sure. But it wasn't all, doom and gloom. They had those classic magical safari moments, too. Like, on day 13, they stumble upon this scene. It's like straight out of a wildlife documentary. Picture a water hole, thick mud, and a whole herd of buffalo just wallowing in it.
Oh, buffalo mud baths. Those are classic.
Right. And they're just a few meters away. Ra was saying they could hear those like squelching sounds.
I can imagine. And probably not the best smell in the world either.
They did not hold back on that detail.
It's all part of the experience. The sights, the sounds, the smells.
So true. Speaking of close encounters, later that day, Mandy gets a surprise visitor right outside their lodge door.
Oh no, what was it?
A whole group of impalas just hanging out.
Impalas. That close. Weren't they a little freaked out?
That's the thing. Apparently not at all. They were just completely unfazed by their human neighbors. It's just amazing, these moments where you realize just how intertwined everything is in that ecosystem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a delicate balance. Every creature, big or small, has its role to play.
Which brings us to those vultures they mentioned circling earlier. Remember that?
Yeah, that was kind of ominous.
Yeah, and it turns out it wasn't a coincidence. They asked Sibo about it, and he confirmed their suspicions.
Poachers.
Poachers. 2 rhinos had been killed. It definitely cast a shadow over their last day in the park.
That's awful.
Yeah.
It's just a reminder that even in these protected areas, these animals aren't always safe.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. But you know, if anything, that experience with the poachers made them appreciate people like Sibo even more. People who dedicate their lives to protecting these incredible creatures.
Absolutely. And, I think those guides play such an important role, not just in keeping visitors safe and informed, but also in educating them about the challenges these animals face. Yeah. And hopefully inspiring them to get involved in conservation efforts.
Totally. Okay, ready for a change of scenery. Day 14. We're leaving the savannah and heading to the coast.
Ooh, from the bush to the beach. I like it. What's on the itinerary?
They head to St. Lucia,
St. Lucia.
a coastal town known for its estuary,
Like,
a haven for all sorts of marine life.
makes sense.
So they traded in the safari jeep
Yeah.
for a boat
Cool.
and set off on the Indian Ocean. It is.
A breeding ground for a lot of species.
And speaking of breeding grounds, they ran into a crocodile
Oh.
guarding its nest. But for me, the highlight, the hippos,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you see them on TV,
yeah.
but Rob and Mandy's descriptions,
Yeah.
really something else.
Ah.
Their size, the way they move through the water,
Yeah.
graceful almost.
They seem docile in the water,
Yeah.
but they're powerful,
Oh, yeah.
territorial.
That's what makes them so fascinating.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
They did mention the smell.
Oh, right.
Let's just say,
Yeah.
not exactly pleasant.
Not known for their fragrance. Back in Durban, day 15, they find this local bar called Wahoo's, and Rob raves about this band they saw, the Afro Divas. Have you ever, stumbled upon a local band while you were traveling and been completely blown away?
Oh, so many times. There's just something special about discovering those hidden musical gems.
It's like tapping into the heartbeat of a place, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like the Afro Divas were quite the experience. They even invited Rob up on stage to dance for his birthday.
Now that's what I call a travel memory.
Right. Those are the moments you just can't plan for. Their last post from this trip, leaving Durban, day 22, starts with a flurry of activity. It's a travel day.
Ah, the bittersweet feeling of moving on to the next adventure.
Totally. They're up early, saying goodbye to Durban, heading to the airport. Next stop, Cape Town.
Quite a change of scenery, even within the same country.
Landed in a place called Camps Bay. Rob describes it as this charming town with a main street stretching right along the seafront. Sounds absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, I can only imagine. The sound of the waves, the ocean breeze, the perfect backdrop to wrap up a trip.
And for their last meal, they stumbled upon this restaurant called The Codfather.
The Codfather. That's a pretty catchy name for a seafood place, and they enjoy it.
Oh, Rob raves about it, but here's the thing. He calls it a concept restaurant. Apparently there's no menu.
No menu. How does that even work?
That's what I thought. But it gets better. Imagine walking in and instead of a menu, they ask you, what kind of fish are you craving? And how much can you handle?
Okay, so picture this. It's day 23 of their trip, and we're waking up with them in Camps Bay, South Africa.
Okay.
The blog mentions this incredible sea mist blanketing everything.
Wow.
But even with the mist, the beach is already bustling.
It's that contrast that is so striking, isn't it?
Yeah.
This almost mystical mist hanging in the air, yet the energy on the beach is anything but sleepy.
Right. I love that you picked up on that. And speaking of contrast, get this. A quick 10-minute drive from that misty coastline, and they're in the heart of Cape Town where it's sunny and HOT.
Camps Bay and Cape Town, so close geographically, but worlds apart in terms of microclimate. It speaks to the diversity of the region, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure.
That within a short drive, you can go from peaceful mist to the bustling energy of a city.
And it sounds like Rob and Mandy dove right into that city energy. They stumbled upon Company Gardens, which sounds like this little oasis right in the middle of
Yeah,
everything.
that's lovely.
They even walked past a TV shoot happening. Makes you wonder what they were filming. Okay, but hold on tight because day 23 isn't done with us yet. That evening, they found themselves at Dizzy's Bar, caught up in a nail-biting rugby match. Wales versus England. You know it's serious when these two nations go head-to-head in rugby. Day 25, their final full day in South Africa, takes them along that stunning Atlantic coast towards Constantia, known for its incredible wineries. And from the blog, it sounds like this wasn't their first, foray into the world of wine tasting.
Right. It's a little detail, but it speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Here they are on a whirlwind trip through South Africa, and they've clearly made time for multiple wine regions.
For sure.
But then, and I love this detail, they choose to have a leisurely lunch at a smaller, more intimate winery called Eagle's Nest.
Yes. Eagle's Nest, with its shaded grounds, sounds like the perfect place to unwind after all the excitement of that rugby match.
Yeah.
Rob and Mandy indulged in a platter of cheeses, pickles, and breads,
Ooh,
all perfectly paired with a chilled Sauvignon Blanc.
it sounds idyllic.
They really do seem to know how to create those picture-perfect travel moments.
They do, and choosing Eagle's Nest for lunch, rather than just a quick tasting, suggests that they value those slower, more intimate experiences.
Right.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the most memorable travel moments happen when we allow ourselves to linger, to truly savor the atmosphere and the company.
totally.
And speaking of company, we can't forget the hilarious encounter Rob had at Groot Constantia.
Oh, no.
Remember, they're British,
Yes.
so naturally when they overhear a fellow Brit in the tasting room, there's that instant,
Oh, of course.
Connection.
Just shared heritage.
Right, so picture this. You're sipping on some amazing South African wine,
Okay.
and this woman who's clearly, enjoying the tasting a little too much,
Right.
asks Rob if he's ever been to the Isle of Wight.
Okay.
Now, for our listeners who may not know, the Isle of Wight is this beautiful island off the south coast of England.
Known for its charming seaside towns and stunning scenery.
Right. Not exactly like a prison.
Not quite.
But Rob, with his typical dry wit, replies, "Only during my stay at Parkhurst."
For those unfamiliar, Parkhurst is a former British prison.
Right. Quite a contrast.
Quite a contrast to the idyllic Isle of Wight.
Oh, man, I can only imagine the look on this woman's face.
Oh, I'd love to have seen her face.
Apparently, she nearly choked on her wine, and Rob couldn't resist adding, "You wouldn't want to go there, love. It's full of criminals."
Oh, the British and their dry humor, even when caught off guard.
I love it.
It's a small detail, but it reveals so much about their ability to find humor in unexpected situations.
And what's so cool is that this South African trip we've been talking about, it's just a tiny snapshot of Rob and Mandy's journey, right?
Right.
Their blog, A New Life Planned in Cyprus, it goes back years,
It's amazing.
documenting their move, their life there, you name it.
Really makes you think, what stories will you have to tell years from now?
That's our deep dive on Rob and Mandy's South African adventure. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Where we never hide. Out on the highway, chasing the tide.